So, yeah, I've been meaning to make this video for a while now, and initially I was going to do it a week after the finale aired. I was going to wait like a week until after the finale aired, because then that would give me, that seemed like an adequate amount of time to process what went on, but it's been 2 weeks, I think, 2 weeks at most, maybe 3 weeks at a push since the finale aired, since everything ended and stuff's done. But even in that time, even in the time between now and then, more and more information has been leaked, more stuff has come out, more statements have been made, stuff has been said by both the actors and the fandom itself. So yeah, it's, every time I think I've processed enough and it's time, and I feel like I'm ready to make the video, something new comes out and I have to read up on that and see what's happening. So yeah, so this video will be kind of somewhat extra thoughts on the series finale, as well as also, as it says in the video, actually looking back on Supernatural, looking back on the show, on the fandom, and everything else in between. So yeah, okay, so finale thoughts. Yeah, okay. Needless to say, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect. I think anyone, perfect is a fairly kind of objective kind of term. Perfect isn't the same concept for it. Like, perfect itself isn't really like a cementable kind of concept. Like, what's perfect to one person or like a group of people is very different to what's perfect to everyone else. So, some people definitely, some people enjoyed the finale more than others did. Others hated it with a passion. Others were okay with it. They settled for what they got in the time that it was released, and others were like, okay, well, kind of makes sense why they went this way with certain things and the other way with other things. So it kind of, it's like a, I think where you stand on the finale is definitely somewhat of a spectrum. Me, myself, my words were, it's not perfect, but it was, in the moment, I'd say it was beautiful. But now, looking back past the tears, now my tear ducts have all dried up, and I'm done crying. Well, I'm not done crying. Every time I go back and watch Dean die, my eyes still start swelling up, but still, the tears are gone now, so now I can actually think about it. And yeah, the finale, even with the time they took to postpone the final 7 episodes, the finale still wasn't as good as it could be. And I feel like with the time they took to postpone the 7 episodes, it could have been better. Like, there was more they could have done, or at least, if they felt like they could definitely do better than what they gave us, then I feel like it would have been reasonable to wait until next year, maybe, because a lot of the CW shows are returning for newer seasons next year. So it's not like, Supernatural, it was a series finale. So I feel like if they could then market it later on as the final 7 episodes returning later this year, then I feel like they could definitely, I think that then they could definitely put in the effort to actually wait it out until next year and see what more they could do, because the final 7 episodes as a whole were like the final 6 episodes, like the six of the final 7 episodes were enjoyable. They kind of, they did what they could. I think that was definitely like, it wasn't like a whole new season that they were promoting. And I think especially the way that the final 7 episodes started, and like the first one was definitely like a filler episode. It wasn't like a whole new thing coming out. It was like the continuation of the story and stuff like that. So, I think the way they marketed that, they said the final 7 episodes, but not like a whole new season. Like they weren't just gonna branch that out into like a season 16 or whatever. It was still season 15. But the finale alone, it definitely, on the one hand, it felt too condensed. Definitely felt too condensed. I feel like they focused too much on what the show used to be, as opposed to what it is now, and also as opposed to what we as a fandom know that it is now. Like, now, it's like a lot of people had very, very common complaints. Like the show seemingly promotes, family doesn't end with blood, and like they did this whole concept of extended family and found family, and like chosen family and stuff like that. But then in the final episode, none of them, besides from Bobby, none of them are anywhere to be seen. Besides from Bobby was the one person they could bring back. and no one else could be brought back. Like, I mean, understandably due to COVID, like there were a lot of castmates that they couldn't really bring back without putting them and their loved ones at risk. So that much is understandable. But then, see, so then what I'm wondering is why, if they knew that they could pull off a great story, like a great story that fans deserve to see, like a story with some great closure as well that fans deserve to see, then I don't know why they could. I don't know why they thought if they postponed it, then they'd still have to bring it back this year. Because I think if that was the plan, if they knew that they could actually get everyone in at a point when things would be safer, then even if it was like separately, even if it was individually or whatever, then it, like I don't know why they couldn't push that until like next year, like, because I feel like that would have like, I feel like we as a fandom like would have been willing to wait until, you know, they could actually bring us something meaningful, because this, it just, I think for one thing, that the final episode felt like something that could have been fleshed out, something that definitely could have been fleshed out and should have been fleshed out, honestly, was just, you know, condensed into one episode, and it just felt so rushed. It felt so rushed. You know, I mean, watching it at the time of release, in the moment, it was no less emotional. And even going back, it still, there is some emotional kind of, you know, quality to it, but it's a lot less knowing how quickly things wrapped up and how quickly they tried to wrap things up. So yeah, because the concept of that whole final episode, so Sam and Dean are finally free from Chuck's curse of being controlled by him. They're finally free from Chuck's power. Jack has the power. He's out there doing God knows what, no pun intended. But they're finally free. They find one final case, so apparently monsters still exist, and I've seen people kind of contemplating that, like, you know, okay, so why would Jack then create like a new world where monsters still exist? And I think it's like that. I mean, I won't lie, that does kind of confuse me, but at the same time, I feel it's more like, you know, this time Sam and Dean find the case because they actually find the case, and not because Chuck is throwing something else their way. So people still hunt it, like, you know, hunting isn't just like a curse. It's not just like a way to die quickly like Dean did, but it's also it also gives some people purpose. So like some people, they kind of they appreciate the kind of servitude, if you will, for lack of a better term, that goes into it. Like, you know, like, it's literally one of the most iconic lines in the show, like saving people, hunting things, a family business. Like, you know, like they, like, you know, it's even, well, in one episode, it's even how, like, it's how Sam describes hunting to Claire. Like, you know, Claire asks him, like, you know, like, why do you do this? Why do you kill monsters? Why do you hunt? And he's like, to help people. Like, that's it. Like, that's all it is. It's like, it's a harrowing and stressful, incredibly stressful line of work, but it still makes them feel like they're doing something good. And you could argue, well, there are plenty of normal people jobs that they could do that also helps people, but I think hunting has always been the core of Supernatural, and alongside the pain and the loss, it's you know, hunting monsters and saving people, like being able to save people from things that go bump. It's one of the core elements of Supernatural. So I think a finale without hunting, I don't know how that would work. I think because hunting is what makes Supernatural Supernatural. So I think if Jack was to take that out, and I mean, not to say that Sam and Dean couldn't live like a regular life, because I think that is actually one of the theories I had, that maybe hunting is still a thing, but now that Sam and Dean are free from the curse, they choose not to hunt anymore, especially knowing that other people are out there. So they still stay in the bunker. They like set up like a network, and they use the bunker as like a hub of some sort, where hunters can seek shelter and, you know, like medical aid if they're ever injured from a hunt, or if they need, like, you know, intel, like resources and stuff, and lore. Then like they use that like when Sam and Cass and everyone, like, were back in season 14 when they rescued all the other Apocalypse Sword hunters. They brought them in, they let them stay there for as long as they like, until they actually set themselves up on their own feet again. So they use the bunker as a shelter and as a way to actually prep up for other hunts and stuff like that. So they could use it in that way again. So any hunters that come by, they can actually use it. So that is a way to maintain the hunting without actually making Sam and Dean do the hunting. I feel like if they knew that there were other hunters out there and that they were still helping in whatever the way they can without actually putting themselves on the line again, they would do that. I feel like, like they would do that. I mean, and they would never say no to any assistance. Like, if hunters actually came by and said that they could really use Sam and Dean's help, then they would never say no because they're out of the business. But they just wouldn't deliberately look for any cases. They wouldn't like look for trouble in exchange for their own lives. So yeah, so that was, that is, I think that would have been a better ending for them to have instead of Dean dying on the first time, and especially that as well. I think the finale, right? Okay, so the finale, Dean dies on the first time. That irked me. Looking back, that definitely irks me. Like the first hunt they got, like it was definitely the first time because it was the same kind of, like the first case they found was the vampires and the Halloween masks and everything. So that was it was those same people plus Jenny, the vampire from way back when, who caused their deaths. So I feel like that could have been fleshed out. I think having him die on the first one out, because again earlier in the season, Dean made a point. I think it was back in the Garth episode, or the episode we had with Garth and like the whole bad luck thing. Dean kind of tried to remind Sam that despite whatever curses or whatever storylines Chuck put them through, all their survival was also down to them. The fact that they were able to survive for so long was at least partially creditable to them. So I feel like if that was true, then they should have at least survived a couple of hunts, like 2 or 3 hunts at least. But him going out in the first one, I mean, yeah, it's just like that one. I mean, say if the hunt he died on was like the 3rd or 4th hunt they had been on, then it wouldn't. Then I think it wouldn't like matter as much if they had at least hunted a couple of things beforehand, like a ghost or a werewolf or a Wendigo or something like that. Then and then they got to the vampires. Then it might have made sense. But I don't know. Like it being the first hunt he goes out on, just seems like they were pretty much just waiting to kill him. Like they were just like looking for an excuse to try and kill him. So that is also another thing that irks me. And also I should point out, okay, so I made the mistake of thinking that it was like a nail or a screw that killed him, and I was like, okay, like I mean, at first glance it looked like a like a DIY tool or something, like just sticking out of like the wooden column. And a lot of other people kind of thought, okay, like it looks like a screw or like a hook or something. How does that really kill him? But looking back at the episode, and also Jensen himself posted on his social media a picture kind of mocking the thing sticking out the wall, and it's not a hook, it's rebar. So it's like a broken, bent out of shape piece of rebar, and being stabbed by rebar is considerably more harmful and more lethal than being stabbed than being stabbed by a hook. And 2 factors are going to it. One thing, it was rebar that like slammed right through the back of him, right through like the center of his body, it seems. And also, the biggest vampire there, the behemoth we saw, the biggest guy there was the one who literally picked him up and rammed him into it. So it wasn't a case of him, just being pushed by someone the same size and strength as him. It wasn't the case of him just being like lightly shoved and then falling onto it. If he had tripped up and fallen onto it, that would be the biggest piss take. But that wasn't it either. It was literally the biggest guy there picking him up and actually ramming him into the thing. So it was out of his control. He was literally overpowered by someone. He was literally overpowered. So that much also makes sense. And then even the way he described it, even the way he actually described having it like inside him, like it felt like it was holding him apart and he was struggling to breathe and he could feel it, like, just being jammed into his body and stuff. So it was definitely like a painful thing for him. So I think that stuff, like when you look at it when you look at how it actually was, it kind of makes sense. So yeah, and I think some people said that it was like a callback to how Sam died in season 2, like when that guy stabbed him in the spine, and then like in that one, if you go back and watch that scene, like he gets stabbed and then the knife gets twisted, so he's like, it's literally like he's breaking his spine with the knife. That one was uber lethal. So this is understandably kind of like a fatal kind of injury that results in death. So yeah. But yeah, I feel like if the writers had actually given Sam and Dean the chance to work through at least a few cases, then it would actually work more in testament to their skills as hunters. And like it's it's a fair point to say that they've definitely only survived for this long because Chuck has wanted them to. We've seen countless other hunters fall victim also to other kind of injuries and freak accidents and stuff like that, being killed by their own weapons or being killed by other monsters or being shoved onto other pieces of rebar or metal kind of, tools or whatever. But Sam and Dean have literally lived this long and also been resurrected because God wills it so, because Chuck himself wanted to see them suffer and to see them go through all this pain and stuff for his own enjoyment. So if you look at it that way, then it also makes sense that Dean would go out the way he did, because again, he's like, now he doesn't have any plot armor. The entire their plot armor was literally their strongest kind of strength throughout this entire show's run. The fact that Chuck gave them the armor to even if they died, to have them resurrected again, so that the other one could make some kind of deal or go through some other kind of trauma. So with this, I think it definitely cements the fact that and that is also what makes Sam and Dean legends in their story. Like that one episode where they went to like a hunter's funeral and everyone else recognized them as the guys who came back to life and died so many times. And every time you said like Wendigo, I think it was, you had to take a shot or something, and like that kind of stuff. But then this finale, like take away the Chuck plot armor, and you find out that Sam and Dean can die just as easily as any other hunters. They can die just as easily as anyone else, and I think that definitely drives home like more of a sense of realism. I feel like it definitely drives home more of a sense that like they are still two guys. Like they're two guys who survived this long because Chuck willed it so, but they are still two guys at their hearts. And despite how good they are, accidents can still happen. They can still happen. So that's why I wanted that's why I feel like it would have been better to remind people just of how good they are by nature, because they were also raised by John. They were raised to kill and to survive by John. So I feel like that should have also been something that was the writers have like reminded you of in the finale. But then having them die after a few having Dean die at least after a few hunts, if he had to die, if the writers decided that yep, he's got to go, then that would have made more sense. But yeah, that is yeah. And yeah, like I said, the whole kind of dying and going to heaven thing, and like that being the end of Sam and Dean's story, I feel I accept that. I accept the fact that they die and go to heaven. That is the only journey, like the only destination that Sam and Dean deserve. But I feel like it should have been fleshed out over at least 3 episodes, and because I think we have a time lapse. We have a time lapse of what happens like between Dean dying and Sam dying. We know that Sam has a family, he has a wife and kid and stuff, so we know that he lives a life. We know that Sam lives a life that he always wanted, like the whole kind of apple pie white picket fence life, and he has a family, and I think he still raises his son as a hunter. So again, like hunting is still alive and well. That whole kind of tradition and line of work is alive and well within the Winchester bloodline. So yeah, but I feel like then, again, that would have also been a great way to bring in the other characters. Like, have Dean die in one episode, then spend one, maybe two, like, at least one episode showing the other hunters coming in, maybe individually as well, or maybe Sam, like, visiting them individually. That way you don't have to have all the actors together and risk like more kind of like COVID stuff, but then have him visit Jodie at her house with the girls, have him visit Garth, have him visit anyone else who's alive, have him visit Charlie and stuff, so have him visit them, tell them what's happened, and then have them like mourning with him that way. And actually, like that way you actually get like a full episode fleshed out where you see just how many lives the Winchesters touched and affected, and how many people they had in their family, how many people they knew, how many friends they had, and all the people that are happy to share memories with him. Like that kind of thing would have cemented the fact that the Winchesters, it was just them two, it was just Sam and Dean throughout this entire show. But also they had extended people, they had an extended tree and an extended line. So yeah, there's it's like the stuff that we want that we just never get, and like we have to not to cast a bad line on fan fiction writers, because I know all those writers are going to be having like a field day, like writing out endings that we should have got, or endings that would have been far better than what we got. But it sucks when you can't even get it from your own shows. So yeah. And I think actually fleshing it out over at least a few episodes, like it would have also helped to kind of cement the idea that it does take time. Like like Bobby kind of told Dean in heaven that time runs differently, so time does run. Like 40 minutes on Earth could be 40 years, but for 40 minutes in heaven even could be 40 years on Earth. So Sam could be living his whole life while Dean's literally driving, which I think was the kind of interpretation from the episode. Like Dean goes for like a half an hour drive, and then 40 years on Earth for Sam. He lives his life, and then he dies, and then he goes to heaven. But actually having a couple of episodes without Dean, just Sam doing his thing and living his life, and actually seeing exactly how he lived his life, actually would have driven home the fact that Dean's not here anymore, and it's just Sam, and Sam is finding a way to move on and live his life and stuff. And yeah, it because I feel like it kind of lessened the sincerity of that kind of time. Otherwise, like it felt like it's like we know Sam hadn't seen Dean for like a good few decades. Like for the rest of his life, he never saw Dean again. But he knew. I think he was at peace with the fact that he would see Dean in heaven once he was done with his own life. So that happened to him. But then Dean felt like he had to wait for Sam. He even mentioned that to Bobby, like, it's not really perfect yet. Sammy's not here yet. And then, Bobby said, he'll be here soon. Time runs differently. But then, for like a 40-minute drive later, his brother's already here. So he doesn't really have time to feel like he's actually missed him, or like he doesn't even have to wait. Like 40 minutes is basically nothing. Like I don't know. Like time running differently, it makes sense. It's like a whole different dimension. It's a whole other reality. It's a different kind of thing. So that much makes sense. But then it doesn't really, I mean, besides from the time lapse, you still don't really feel like Sam has really spent much time without Dean. Like he's lived a life, and he's had his family with him through his photos and everything, and also that it's almost like he lived his life with a family, but it's like he never once down the line contacted Jodie or Bobby or Charlie to see how they were doing, or like to see if they were okay. Like Dean dies, and then all of a sudden he's got a new wife, and like he's got a wife and he's got a kid. I think the wife was blurred out. That was an issue. That was an issue because a lot of people, myself included, would have liked to actually see confirmation that Sam did in fact reunite with Eileen after Dean died, and also to the point where he got married to her, and then they had a son and everything. But instead, I think because they couldn't bring Shoshana in, like the actress in, to actually play her, they just kind of hired a body double and then blurred her out in the background. I mean, she was a brunette, so that alone kind of gave me somewhat the sense of confidence that okay, it was Eileen and she was there. And I think there's not really, I don't really know anyone. I mean, I would say that, but then I think I heard some of the writers did say that if you want to see it as Eileen, you can, but also if you want to see it as someone else, if you want to see it, like any gender identity you want the person that Sam marries to have, you can see. If you see him marrying a man, it's fine. If you see him marrying a woman, it's fine. Anyone else, it's fine. Like whoever you see him spending his life with and having like starting a family with, it's fine. Which is great. It's great. It is great. A lot of people headcanon him with various different sexualities, and it's great. It's all good. But, it's Sam and Eileen are like a somewhat fairly established kind of relationship within his life and also within the timeline of Supernatural. So to see some sense of confirmation, I think maybe I think that could be another reason they blurred the person out, like to actually kind of put in that kind of clarification, or like that kind of confidence in viewers. Like if they don't really see Sam marrying Eileen, if like for someone else's comfort they see him marrying someone else and living life with them, then it's also fine. But yeah, I don't know, maybe, but yeah, I think that also like I think not having the actress in also ties into not having other people who have been in the show and other people who have made their mark on the show in as well. So yeah, it's a tough kind of thing to think through, but the fact that they blurred her out, I think, yeah, it feels like they're leaving too much open for interpretation, but at the same time, it's a confusing thing to think about sometimes. Yeah, because it's one of the things I've been thinking about. Like, like Dave said, it's for ambiguity's sake. So, like his partner can be anyone you want them to be. His partner can be anyone you want them to be, which is great. But it's also like, if you're not going to bring Eileen back and respect her resurrection, like they didn't even reference Eileen being back. That alone is a huge issue. Like, she was wiped out off screen by Chuck. And then no one that potentially would have been resurrected by Jack is actually shown to be living a happy life off screen, like on screen. Like, Charlie and Stevie were wiped out. They couldn't show us them back in their apartment eating scrambled eggs and making guns and everything. Like, like you couldn't show us them. Jody and Donna, with the girls, with the Wayward sisters. Bobby, like AU Bobby, like all the people who were brought back. Like, I think it's definitely like a necessary inclusion to show that, okay, yeah, he did resurrect them. They're all living lives again. Some of them are hunting, some of them aren't, whatever, but they're back. They're alive. They deserve that much. And again, that's also a great way you can actually bring them back in without having them all in one room. Like you like that could have been a great montage to see too. Like, they're all living their own lives. Also, like, still, like, they're still all connected to each other. They're still all in contact, but they're all still living their own lives, doing their own thing. But they're not all under one roof or anything like that. So that kind of thing could have definitely been possible. But for some reason, the writers didn't do it. So I don't know. But yeah, but the time lapse. We saw different phases. We saw, Sam with a toddler, and that was the reveal that was also the reveal that he named his son after Dean, so his name is Dean Jr. I don't know why, but until I actually googled that character, I thought he had just named his son Dean Winchester, but no, it's Dean Jr. So I think that would make more sense. So yeah, he was Dean Jr. And then we saw him playing catch and him helping him with his homework, and then him on his deathbed and everything. So yeah, and again, I think that time lapse, I think had they dedicated a better portion of the episode to that time lapse, I think because especially since his son has a hunter's tattoo, his son has like an anti-possession tattoo on his arm, so that's like proof, like that, like it's like a somewhat of a blink and you'll miss it moment. It's like a short glance, like a brief glance at it, but it also shows that hunting is still a thing, and also he's raised his son into it. So like whether or not he's actually gone on hunts with his son is questionable because we didn't see that happen. But then I think at the very least he would have explained this world to him, explained what monsters are out there, how to kill them. So he would have taught him the theory of hunting without actually doing any of the practical stuff with him, which is kind of less ideal, because then if you haven't trained him in the field, then there's no telling how he would actually do in the field if he doesn't know how to actually do it. But I don't know, but he still made him aware. I think at the very least he's made him aware of it. So that much was good. But again, yeah, that kind of stuff you feel, I feel at least it would have been better to see fleshed across a couple of episodes, at least one episode, to show that he did live a life, and it wasn't just like 5-minute scene, like a 5-minute scene with gaps in between. But yeah, that's that. And then yeah, another issue a lot of people had, which yeah, I think it's pretty much something that most of the fandom has. Some people have, so some people I've seen have said that they could care less about it because of what they think that Cass and Dean's relationship is or could be or should be or whatever. But I think regardless of what regardless of whether or not you believe in DCL, regardless of whether or not you believe that they're actually in any kind of romantic pairing, I think what we can all agree on is that Castiel's sacrifice should have been mentioned and referenced and acknowledged beyond they would want us to live on. That was Dean's only reference to that, like Sam, said that he just felt uncomfortable trying to celebrate with a pie fest and all that shit without Jack and Cass being there. He felt like they should be there, and then Dean's only words are like, if we don't live on, if we don't keep fighting and live on our lives, then their sacrifices will be for nothing. And like, Jack hasn't sacrificed himself in any way. Like, Jack, he literally said he is everywhere, and even if they want to have a drink with him or whatever, he'll be around. So they can just pray to him and he'll show up and do whatever. So he can show up at any time. But Cass is the one who actually literally gave his life. He confessed his love for Dean and then got dragged away to Uber Hell by the MT. So that is something I feel, again, regardless of whether or not you believe in the power of gay love, that is something that deserves to be acknowledged beyond we should keep living to honor their sacrifice. Like that, he, you'd think that, Dean would actually bring up that thing. Like he like, even if he's struggling to comprehend it or struggling to think about it himself, he could actually address it with Sam, see what Sam thinks, or, he'd at least address what Cass actually told him and stuff. So yeah, and that whole scene, so the DCL confession scene went viral on Twitter. That is undeniable. And it broke. It damn near broke the internet. It went viral on the internet. It damn near broke the fandom, but it went viral on the internet. And yeah, so because that was the first official scene we had of Cass telling Dean, "I love you." That was the first official scene we had of that, and DCL shippers, jumped in straight with, okay, they've somewhat canonized, canonified, I think. They made DCL canon, and the non-shippers, the one who saw the bond between Dean and Cass as just brotherly love, insisted that, it's not that. It's not a romantic confession of love. He's literally telling him, "I love you as a brother, or I love you as family, or I love you as a friend," or anything like that. And, I think the main problem that I saw with some of the responses was, it was those kinds of responses, the ones that were straight up shooting down anyone so much as referencing DCL. Like, anytime anyone referenced DCL and said, anytime anyone made that kind of conclusion or made that kind of, stated that kind of opinion, so a lot of them that I saw would just be shot down with people saying, "No, it's not gay love. It's not. They're not boyfriend and boyfriend, and he's not in love with him. It's just like a brotherly familiar love. Stop making everything DCL." Like that kind of stuff. Those were the kinds of comments I had a problem with, because even if you don't see it as a gay relationship, even if you don't see them as like a romantic pairing, there is absolutely no reason to shoot down anyone else's interpretation of what it is. There's no reason to shoot down anyone else coming to that conclusion and saying that it's DCL, because if you don't see it as a romantic pairing, then more power to you. You're free to see it as just like a friendly pairing or like a familial pairing. But some people do see it as DCL. Some people do see it as gay love between two men, and that's completely fine. Like, that does not take away anything from whatever it actually is in the show. It doesn't take away anything from your pairing. It doesn't take away anything from anyone else's pairing. I mean, if people were, because it was like another thing too, like it was the only version of that kind of commentary I saw. I mean, personally, I didn't really see anyone who said it was DCL shooting down anyone else and saying, "No, it's definitely gay love. It's not this or that or the other. It's definitely this." But people who said it was DCL were being shot down and being told, "Stop trying to make DCL a thing. Stop trying to do this. Stop trying to do that. It's not that. It will never be that." So that kind of thing, seeing that irked me, and just made me feel like it's been one of the most common, one of the most popular kind of fan shippings of two characters in pop culture, in fandom, as of the recent years. And it's been brought up at cons, it's been brought up at conventions, and to my knowledge, I think Misha is the one that's gone all out with it. He's the one who's actually said DCL is a thing. I'm totally fine with it. I think, to my knowledge, Jensen hasn't really said much on it, and I don't believe he's against it, but I think he just, from what I've seen, he doesn't really have much of an opinion on it. He's like, if you want to believe in it, go ahead. I have no kind of bad or good comments on it. Just, believe in what you want to believe, be kind to each other, all that kind of thing. And I think that is how things should be. If you want to see DCL as DCL, see it as DCL. If you don't want to see it, then don't see it as something else. But if you start shooting other people down and actually, telling them, if you start telling someone, other people, that they can't see it this way because you don't, then that's a problem. Because then it's it's no different from them trying to say that, this is the only way to say it, as you are saying that this is the only way to say it. So it's it's just, it takes away from the kind of interpretation other people put onto it to make themselves more comfortable and to make themselves feel more seen in the media, because LGBT relationships are very, very scarce, and even in today's day and age, it's very, very scarce. So a lot of people are thereby forced to actually kind of headcanon relationships and pairings in their head, because the writers don't always actually make it canon themselves. So, and that makes it even tougher to see when you see like a confession scene like that, and then not only is it not like concretely or strictly kind of reciprocated, but then you see people saying like, oh, he doesn't reciprocate it, therefore it's not real. But I think if you look back at that scene, you know, I even thought it back when I actually first watched that episode, and I think it's, you know, like, you know, even Misha himself addressed it, the fact that, you know, Dean was undeniably shocked at everything that was going on. Like, death was after him, then Cass tells him about the deal, and then Cass gets dragged away by the empty. So all of this happens in such quick succession that he doesn't really know how to react. And like the very final shot of that episode, is Dean on the floor against the wall, dropping his phone even as Sam calls him, and then just, you know, sobbing into his hands because he's just lost Castiel. So yeah, me personally, I think I'm neutral, but leaning towards DCL. I'm neutral, but I lean towards DCL. And I'll tell you why, right? So throughout this entire show, I have seen various kind of I've seen what people point out to be the bonds of DCL, and it's one of the things that, you know, watching through the show, like seeing various people point out what are little signs of DCL. It's like when it's pointed out and I go back and look at it, and even when I'm actually watching it in real time, it kind of makes sense to me. So that, like, for that reason, I have been in full support of DCL. I'm like, you know, if they were together, that would be cool. They get along. They have like a profound bond. And even, hey, it's even Castiel's words. Back when Sam confronts him about it. You know, like when that like that scene where Sam's praying, like Sam admits he's been praying to Cass, but Cass just doesn't give, you know, two rats' asses. And then Dean prays to him once, and Castiel just like, boop, Dean schooled me, what'd you need, bro? And then even, you know, he even admits to Sam, you know, like, you know, admittedly, Dean and I do have a more profound bond than most people do. So that scene, I think that scene, I've seen it used in many DCL fan edits. And it makes sense, and I think it also stands on two grounds. On one of being like a DCL moment, but also being like a somewhat more of a comedic moment that, you know, oh, Castiel does prefer Dean to Sam, and also to most humans. So yeah, watching through the show, I think it goes without saying I'm definitely gonna watch this show through a second time, like in like a somewhat more of like an analytical way, but also in more of like a nostalgic way too. But I'm gonna watch it a second time, and this second time might also allow me to actually catch out on all the DCL moments early on from season 4 onwards. But yeah, the question I think that remained on fans' minds was, is it reciprocated by Dean? And in that scene, his eyes were swelling with tears, and he broke down at the end, but he never really... That is where the issue comes through. The fact that, for one thing, Dean never even acknowledged Cass's goodbye speech. He never mentioned it to Sam. He never told Sam what Cass told him. And also the fact that, you know, they never really... Like, that's the thing, like they never really brought it back up again. So you would want to see what, like, how the other party feels, how the other person actually feels being told something like that, and being told that, especially before said person is actually dragged down. And also that too, like, Cass confessing his love for Dean gets him dragged away by the empty. That, come on now. And also another common thing I've seen, which I also like believe in, which I also agree with, is that Dean dying reinforced the idea, like the belief that he always had. He because of the way he was raised, because of what he was taught and everything else, like he believed he was always destined to die in the field. And it's one of his lines from like an earlier season. He's explaining to Sam, like, you know, you and I both know how this ends. One of us dies, and as long as you get the white picket fence life with a family and everything, I'm good with that. Like Dean always being like Dean kind of internalizing the idea that that not only is he destined to die in the field of hunting, but also that he feels like he doesn't really deserve or believe that he can actually have the same life as Sam, like that he can't have a family. And I think it's made worse by the fact that the one time he actually did try it with Lisa and Ben, he drew he drew danger to them through the djinn, but also the fact that he ended up losing them anyway. Because I think after all the stuff that they went through with Crowley and the demons and everything, he ordered Castiel to wipe their minds and to make them forget that he ever existed. So the one time he actually did try and live that kind of a life, it cost him. He still couldn't have it. So I feel like, again, that was Chuck. That was Chuck. Watching season 15, that every bad thing that's ever happened to them is Chuck throwing things their way. So, that is Chuck leading him on with hope of having a family and then ripping it all away from him for the sake of drama and stuff like that. So, yeah, and I feel like, I think that should have been also another way that they went. I think that would have also been a great way to go, like them reinforcing the whole Hunter network thing with the bunker as a hub, yada yada yada, but then actually showing Sam and Dean living on to actually have families of their own. Like, maybe he doesn't go back to Lisa, and then maybe he doesn't. Or no, he doesn't go back to Lisa and Ben. No, him and Castiel will live happily ever after. In an ideal world. But no, like, him and Castiel live on. Him and Cass and Sam and Jack all live on as one great big happy quadrupled family. Like, Jack is God, but he can still live in the bunker. How cool would God living in the bunker be? Like, not Chuck, but God, like Jack God. Like, how cool would that be? Like, him actually being there, he can just materialize food with the snap of his fingers and, beer, and, he can give himself a flat screen TV and everything. But no, I think that would have been cool of them actually living a life as their own selves with their own family and everything. And Sam, and again, have Sam go with Eileen. Have him and her having like a kid of their own. Having like he could still have a son named Dean Jr. And stuff could happen. Happiness could ensue. What do the SPN writers have against happiness? Like what do they have against their characters and their people living happy, fulfilling lives without the fear of pain and loss and suffering? Like, what do they have against that? Like, what? Like, yeah, like that. And again, I think the main thing there is to reinforce, like, is to kind of subvert that, to show Dean, you deserve a happy life too. You deserve to get married to someone and have kids with them and live a happy life and to actually, be who you want to be, live the life you want. If you want the apple pie life and the white picket fence life with Sam and Dean and Cass, with Sam and Jack and Cass, you can have that too, Dean. You can have it too. You, despite what you've been raised to believe and what you've been forced to believe all your life, you can live a life free of hunting, and you can live a life free of pain too. You can grow old and die along with Sam. You can die on like matching deathbeds and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to die in the field. You can live a happy life. Like, that would have been the great way, like the best way to actually subvert expectations for the end of season 15. Like, it would have been the way to go. It would have been the way to go. But yeah, again, supernatural writers hate happiness. They hate happiness. They hate joy. Again, just doing this video makes me stressful. It gives me a headache having to think about why we can't have happy things. Why we can't have nice things, I will never know. But yeah, I feel like I've shared enough thoughts on the finale. I think that's, again, in the moment, I think of a lot less than I do when I'm not recording. When I'm not recording, I'm kind of going over what I would want to say in the video, and my thoughts are a lot more coherent and precise and eloquent. And then when I'm actually recording, it's like, yeah, this and that and the other, and then that's it. And then after I finish recording, it's like, oh, I could have mentioned this, I could have mentioned that every single time. So yeah, but I think most of what I wanted to address, most of what I wanted to mention in this video, I did also mention in the actual finale reaction. I did, but now, I've kind of gone one step further and also addressed it in this vlog, if you will. I'd definitely count this as a vlog. So yeah, so that is my thoughts on the finale. was not perfect by any means. It had its moments. But even those moments could have been better. Like, okay, one thing I almost forgot to address. Okay, I think this episode we really got like an idea for what the CW's kind of not production quality, but what their budget is like. I think you know what I'm talking about, like that like the first time we see Old Man Sam, going into his garage and just uncovering the Impala. I think that. Can we talk about that wig? Can we? can, can we talk about that hair? Can we talk about it? Because I don't know if we want to talk about it, but I feel like we need to talk about it. I think that. I've seen a lot of opinions. I've seen a lot of thoughts on that wig. I've seen a lot of thoughts on the hair, the style, the color, the kind of overall appearance, the way it just sits on his head. It doesn't even look like Jared's actual hair. Like they even dyed it grey or whatever. I don't know if you can dye hair grey, maybe, but it doesn't even look like that. It literally looks like they took like an old wig, did something to it, and then just plopped it on his head. And I think to the point where you can see the hairline. I think at some point you can actually see the hairline. And I think with like an actual good wig, like you can still see the hairline, but it's not as obvious that it's an actual wig, and you can kind of tell that okay, so like it looks more realistic. But with this, it looks like they've literally just taken a wig, like even the texture, like the hair texture of the wig doesn't match what we know his actual hair to be like, and then they've just kind of made him grow a beard for extra measure, and I don't know, maybe use makeup to put some more wrinkles under his eyes or something. I don't know, but I think definitely on his deathbed he looked more realistically old than he did walking to that. Like I've seen meme after meme after meme of what people think that thing is. Like a lot of people. I think the first thing I saw was people comparing him to Doc from Back to the Future, and I think that whole scene does kind of have the same energy of like maybe like an old Marty McFly wearing an equally bad wig, uncovering the DeLorean and sitting in it and remembering all those times with Doc. I think it's not the best wig. Okay, it's not. I think we've established that well enough. It's not the best wig, but yeah, some have taken more of a less of a shine to it than others have. Just straight up mocking the hell out of it. And yeah, I think I even saw someone saying that apparently they must have like burned a wig and then put it out right before it turned to ash and then plopped it on Jared's head. Like I don't like so some people questioning exactly what they told Jared to make him wear that. Some people saying that they must have like held him at gunpoint and forced him to wear it. But yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it's the finale. You'd think they'd actually put more heart and soul into hair like that. But again, I think if you ignore that scene and jump straight into his deathbed scene, he looks a lot more realistic. He's got like more facial hair. They've got more makeup on him to give him wrinkles. He looks considerably older. So then the older hair. I mean, chances are it's the same wig. Chances are it's probably the same wig. But then it actually looks like. But then he doesn't look nearly as old. Because I think like on his deathbed they actually put the effort in to make him older. But then in the actual garage scene, it's like they've put like a grey wig. They put a wig of grey hair on his head, and they're like, boom, he's older now. Just deal with it. He's older. Even if he doesn't look older than like 10 years at most, just deal with it. He's older now. But when you're on his deathbed, it's like, okay, now put some makeup on him and make him fragile and stuff like that. So then you actually believe, okay, he's on his deathbed. That means he is significantly old. And stuff. So yeah, but that wig scene, I knew I'd have to address it. So that was fun. That was very fun. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just the wig. There was a wig, and there was an attempt. To make Jared look older, and they failed the first time, but then they kind of came pushing through with a bit more effort in the second time. So second time's a charm. Okay, I'm mostly confident I've covered everything I remember that I wanted to talk about in the finale. If there are any questions you have or any opinions you have that you want to share on the finale, then comments are open. Throw your comments in there and have just have at it. But yeah, that is everything I remember I wanted to talk about. That is everything I remember that is everything I remember I wanted to talk about the finale. And again, knowing me, once I turn this camera off and move on to editing this, I'm likely gonna remember something else, at least one more thing. So that's just me. But yeah, that was the finale. Not perfect. Could have been a lot better. They should have. I think if they had waited until they had a better opportunity to do like all the more valuable and all the more memorable things, then they could have. Because this is a memorable. I think the way that this finale is memorable is in the way that they rushed a lot of things, and also could have could have actually done more things, but they chose not to for whatever reason. Because again, if they were willing to postpone the filming of this and actually rewrite this during COVID to film this later on, then I think they could have done what the other CW shows are doing and actually postponed it next year if that was what they needed to do to wait to get everyone that they wanted on board. So yeah, but yeah, that's the finale stuff over and done with. Supernatural. Super duper natural. That's also a great way to describe the show. Super duper natural. It is a pretty super show. It is a pretty damn super show. It's been, I think it's the, I've seen it described as the longest running sci-fi show of all time in history, and I have to correct it because, internally at least, I have to correct it because no, the longest running sci-fi show in the world is Doctor Who. Doctor Who has been on since the 60s, since the early 60s. It's been on, almost forever, and even with especially plus with the reboot back in the early 2000s. So that's the longest running sci-fi show ever. The longest running American sci-fi show ever is Supernatural. So I'm not trying to be like, well, actually, but yeah, I'm just saying it's it's how it is. Because even when I see it in my head, I'm just like when I read it, I'm like, oh, cool. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, wait, isn't that Doctor Who? It's been on since like the 60s, and this is like 15 seasons and stuff. So yeah, although, I mean, technically, if you count the reboot of Doctor Who, then that's been on for 13 seasons, or no? I don't. How many seasons has Doctor Who been on since the reboot? Let me look that up. 12 seasons. Okay, it's been on for 12 seasons, and then there's gonna be an actual like a Christmas, but like a Christmas special coming up. Yeah, okay, 12 seasons. Okay, so the reboot hasn't been the reboot doesn't have as many seasons as much as the Supernatural does, but Supernatural in its original run alone has 15 seasons, but then Doctor Who has the actual full length wise, it has the longer kind of stuff. So if you go for classic Who, then it's the longest running sci-fi show ever. So and that stuff is still canon, so still very much included. But yeah, Supernatural, I think in terms of like American media, it's definitely like one of the longest running shows ever. I think I'm not really aware of many other shows. I think well, okay, well, I mean, I was thinking of like older American sci-fi shows like Star Trek, because like that's not only does that have like a large number of seasons, but it also goes. But I mean, on the one hand, I don't know if it's had as many seasons as Supernatural, but I think it's also like there's also like many different Star Treks as well. There's Voyager, Deep Space Nine, other ones, like other spin-offs. So and then there's movies as well. Supernatural doesn't yet have a movie. So I mean, I would love a Supernatural movie. I think I heard somewhere that Jensen actually started his own production company. Jensen and Daniil actually have their own kind of actual production company for like TV shows and or movies. So I think that means if Jensen can get his hands on the rights for Supernatural, then him, Jared, and Misha and Daniil and anyone else who wants to be involved in it can actually come up with a Supernatural movie like 5-10 years from now. So yeah, but no, Supernatural, it's been on for a long time. It has been on for such a long time. It's become, I think it's safe to say, it's become a staple of pop culture. It's become a staple of pop culture, of sci-fi and fantasy media. And I think yeah, it's been. I think a lot of people have very different stories of how they first discovered Supernatural. And I think that's one of the beauties of this fandom. Like, a lot of people discovered it in different ways. A lot of people joined it in different ways. Some people have been watching it since it first started airing on the WB way back when Smallville was still a thing. And Jensen was on Smallville too. Jensen was actually on Smallville too. So, you know, I think I don't know which one he did first, but he was also on, like, he was still working for those kind of same networks. And then when the WB became the CW, Supernatural moved over to that network. So yeah, it's been on for a while. And I think it's I discovered it back. I was still in high school, I think, when I discovered it. I was still in high school when I first discovered it. I was like around 13, I think. I remember I was just about becoming a teenager when I discovered it. And funny thing is, I think I remember watching an episode of it out of context on TV when I was about 6, because like I think it was like the middle of the night, and I went downstairs and I turned on the TV or something. I don't know if I was alone, but I think I have a memory of watching TV in the middle of the night, and like an episode came up with these two guys, and they were like, you know, trying to kill a monster. I don't remember if I think that kind of description would match Supernatural. It is literally two brothers killing monsters. So the thing, I didn't really check what the name of the show was. I didn't really check what I didn't contextualize any of it. I just turned on the TV, saw these two guys with guns killing a monster, and that was it. I thought, looks neat, and then I just went back to sleep. So Supernatural back then had little to no effect on me. Didn't really remember it. I didn't really kind of internalize it or remember having seen that kind of a short clip, if you will. But then fast forward a handful of years, and I suddenly joined Tumblr. I think Tumblr is one of the most common places you can find Supernatural, where you can find the fandom, where you can discover the TV show. Tumblr was where I discovered it, and not just through Supernatural, but through Super Wholog, the crossover that fans created online of Supernatural, Doctor Who, and Sherlock, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. A lot of people wanted that crossover. A lot of people loved it, and I thought it was really cool too. I think back then I was a fan of both Doctor Who and Sherlock already. I was obsessed with both of those, and Doctor Who was what I grew up on. Doctor Who was actually what I actually grew up on as a kid, and to this day I still watch with passion. So that was already kind of cemented in my heart. Sherlock, I discovered that. I started watching that. I thought, oh, this is a really cool show too. So Supernatural was the only one out of that trio that I wasn't watching, and then I discovered Supernatural through those kinds of fan edits and fan posts, and then I clicked on the Supernatural tag in those posts one day, and then I discovered more and more GIFs and more fan art and all this different stuff. I discovered this fandom, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna complete this trio in my kind of in my watch list. I'm actually gonna, start watching Supernatural, and yeah. It's like an almost lifelong journey kicked off right from there, and it changed my life. I'm not afraid to admit that it changed my life. It kind of introduced me to this whole new kind of world that seemed somewhat somewhat mainstream in terms of the genre, but it seemed so unique at the same time. Because the early days of Supernatural, it focused on a lot of those kind of casual fantasy horror kind of themes, like they fight demons, they fight vampires and werewolves, and goes like all those kinds of like typical horror movie monsters you would get in any other kind of in any other kind of medium. So because of that, I was attracted to it, because I was always into horror movie monsters and that kind of theme and that kind of genre. So to discover that there was a show about two brothers who travel across the country, actually killing these people or killing these monsters and doing all this stuff, was definitely like an intriguing concept to me. And I think it definitely also seeing Super Wholog as well, seeing Doctor Who and Sherlock being combined with this whole other TV show that I knew next to nothing about, was a very interesting concept, and it was all the more motivating for me to actually get into Supernatural. And I started watching the first I think the first episode, I was creeped out by it because it was a ghost, and ghosts I always found creepy. And then like the whole woman in white thing definitely creeped me out too. So that kind of thing. And it's the idea of it was also the idea of like one of the unique things I admired about the show was the fact that it's not it was the way that the characters were drawn into the horror aspect. Like usually in a horror movie you get people being the victims and trying to survive, but these guys, they go looking for trouble. They actively look for, you know, cases, and they actually look for monsters to hunt down. They actually they have training, they have weapons, they have lore, they have all stuff like the lore alone was so kind of entrancing and, you know, like attractive to this kind of show. The fact that they actually have all this kind of, you know, this kind of knowledge and this information, and like they kind of crafted their own way of explaining how these monsters work and how to kill them and what they're like. So yeah, because typically as well, like vampires have those two like fangs that, you know, you mostly recognize with vampires, but then with these ones, like the fangs come out their gums. They have all these teeth, like a whole new set of vampire teeth. And werewolves and supernatural don't fully transform into actual hairy hunking beasts, but, you know, they just have like, you know, just yellow eyes and like a giant set of fangs and strength and all that good stuff. But then I mean, I think they kind of changed up some stuff with this. Like they changed up some stuff, like, you know, with vampires as well. Like vampires can still easily travel out and about in sunlight. They don't need like an invitation. They don't need any of that stuff. And staking them in the heart is the classic cliched way to kill them. But if you want to kill them in supernatural, you gotta behead them. So that kind of stuff, like changing up some stuff, making it more interesting, was definitely cool. And I think it definitely showed like a gory aspect to it, like actually beheading someone as opposed to just, you know, staking them in the heart or something, was definitely more interesting. But yeah, and I think again, like that whole concept that these two guys actively go out looking for trouble, you know, and especially that stereotype of the white people as well actually looking for trouble, because usually like in horror movies you get it that, you know, if the white people hear a scary sound or they you know, find something suspicious, instead of walking away and surviving and living another day, they walk into the trouble and then they get themselves into more trouble. But with this one, not only do the white people go looking for trouble, they survive at the end of it. They go looking for trouble because they know how to kill it. They know how to actually solve the problem. They know how to kill the monsters. So that as well. I mean, that wasn't something I processed right away. That was after watching a bunch more horror movies and actually finding out that kind of trope too. That was something I actually thought about when looking back on Supernatural. Like, oh hey, they're both white and they still survive. That's intriguing. But yeah, I think that is a trope you can't really deny very much. But I think it's a trope. It's a thing that they've kind of subverted for this, and like one of the kind of staples of this show too. So, but yeah, I think the first episode got me intrigued, and I was like, okay, they can handle themselves, and they come up with some really cool ideas for all these different monsters and villains. So I definitely want to see more of this. And then the second episode, Wendigo, I loved that. I loved Wendigo and like the whole concept of a cannibal turning into a monster, like a human resorting to cannibalism, but then paying the price with their humanity and their actual existence and stuff, and then turning into Wendigos. And I think Wendigo was, when I actually grew to appreciate the fact that, oh, they're like, you know, they don't really seem like they have the biggest budget, but they still put the effort in that they can. Like the logo itself wasn't anything too flashy. It was very, very simplistic, and it worked. But then they put that much more money into actually making their monsters and their characters look more realistic. You know, the Wendigo looking like a really lanky, kind of like a Nosferatu without the cloak almost. That kind of thing I really appreciate, and the whole concept of that, like the lore behind the Wendigo, like the lore they put into their monsters works, and it draws you in more to thinking about how these monsters work and how the hunters kill them, and what can go wrong and what can go right. So yeah, I think that is one of the things that works definitely in the favor of the show. The fact that not only do they draw in like all the classic monsters that you know, but they also come up with their own kind of information from there. They come up with their own ways to sort them out and stuff. So there's like a very, very big element of creativity there that I really admired as a fan of the genre. So that definitely drew me in. And then even as they progressed through the seasons, they brought in more things like demons. I think demons to begin with, they were definitely a threat, but then as they went on, they became more of a threat. And then they also introduced they also introduced the concept of heaven, hell, angels, this whole kind of like religious existence. And I think it's definitely like it's a religious instance. I feel that kind of transcends what the Bible tells you, because I think that they don't like when they reference stuff like God and angels and demons and heaven and hell, like they very rarely bring out the Bible. I think I can't remember a time where they've ever really brought out the Bible in a way to explain them. Like, I mean, Castiel does at one point tell Dean, read the Bible. We're not just, we're not just cute little things that sit on your shoulder telling you what to do. We are warriors of God. Angels are warriors of God. They're fighters. They're battlers and stuff. So, it's like that's the only time I ever properly remember the Bible being mentioned. But other times they do have like the release of Lucifer and the apocalypse and Armageddon. That kind of stuff is also, I presume, in the Bible. But they also treat it as their own kind of information, and hit like a chain of events that higher celestial beings are aware of, and how things are supposed to be executed, executed, like the 66 like the 66 seals and Lilith and Lucifer and all the stuff going on. They don't reference stuff like the Bible for that, but they do kind of pass it off as this kind of known law among higher beings and this known law among hunters. So it's its own interpretation of fantasy and mythology that definitely drew me in all the more. So that stuff was a lot of fun. And then, of course, unarguably one of the biggest, most impactful, most meaningful, most drawn out, most well drawn out theme of this show: family. Family, whether it be blood family or found family, chosen family, whatever, it's just family. It's the idea, and it's the familial bond between Sam and Dean, but also the people they discover along the way. Also the people they discover along the way through their dad's journal, through meeting other hunters, through finding other people. It's this idea, and especially Bobby's line to Dean being like, family doesn't end with blood. And for so long after hearing that line, I completely misunderstood that line. I thought what he meant was like, I thought he meant blood as in the literal term, as in actually being killed and bleeding out and stuff. I thought it meant, family doesn't end when you die. Family doesn't end. Family, even when you're gone, family will still remember you. I think that can still be that can still be interpreted somehow, somewhat. But what he actually meant was, looking back, I think it wasn't until like a not fairly recently, but like a couple of years back at least, that I actually thought more about that, and I thought, wait, no. But Bobby isn't his actual blood family, though. He's found family, so that's what he means. Family doesn't end with who's in your actual biological family tree, but it's also the people you meet along the way, the people you keep with you along the way, the memories you keep, the bonds you make that can't be broken. It's that kind of thing. That's what he means. Family doesn't end with blood. All the more people can be family too. So, yeah, I misinterpreted that line for so long. But I think now it can somewhat mean the same thing as that, but mainly it means that, found family can often be stronger than than the family you're born into. And I think with the Winchesters, it's the idea that, Sam and Dean lost everything when they were so young, and then even in season 2, they lost even more when John sacrificed himself. So then they felt like it was really just them, but then they had Bobby, they met Ellen and Joe, they met Ash, they met Rufus, and all these other people along the way, who really made their mark on the Winchesters' lives and in their memories and in their hearts and everything. So that sense of family has, for 15 seasons, that sense of family and that kind of theme of family has run for so long and so strongly, that I think it's also what birthed the SPN fandom. That line and that sense that found family means just as much, and found family is just as strong and valuable as born family, as blood family, is what birthed the SPN fandom today. All these people from all different walks of life, all different stories and experiences, all coming together because they love Supernatural. All these different people of all ages, of all cultures, of all beliefs, of whatever, regardless of who they are, they all, we all came together because of our love, our unified common love for Supernatural and what it means and what it kind of gives us. For a lot of people, it gave them hope and a home, and something to look forward to at the end of a long day. And for a lot of people, there are so many stories of people saying that, after a long day at work or school or whatever, they'd come home and switch on Supernatural and just enjoy another episode and stuff. And I think that is definitely definitely enhanced by the conventions. There was an amazing channel, I'll link it down below. There was an amazing channel on YouTube called Supernatural Conventions, and it's literally fans sending in videos that they've taken of themselves and other fans at Supernatural conventions, at various convention centers throughout the world, I think, where Supernatural, cast and crewmates, or mainly castmates, have actually come, had a chat and answered questions and actually had some fun and made memories. There's so many different stories that they've told, and I think that has that has cemented the sense of family that this show gives people. That it's not just a TV show, but it's the actual actors. I think there's not enough I can say about the actors. Jared Jensen, Misha, Rob, Benedict, Ruth Connell, Samantha Smith, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, DJ Qualls, Felicia Day, all these different people, all these different actors, like, regardless of how long they've been on the show as well. Like, so some of them have only been on for one season or like a few episodes, but they've still kind of made enough of an impact, and they still consider Supernatural enough of a part of their lives that they still come along, they still talk about their characters, their time on the show, they still talk about what they've done, and they still answer fan questions. And it's like, it's that kind of common bond they all share with each other that, fans themselves have actually taken in and internalized and processed and all that stuff. So I think, truth be told, I think, and I think there may be a bit of bias on my end when I say this, but I think I'm not that aware of any other show that has produced as much as strong of a bond of family as Supernatural has. I'm not aware of very many shows that have actually cemented and actually created as strong and as unified of a fandom as Supernatural has. The SPN family is something that will live on, and I think it's even the way that Jensen described it. Jen, wait, years and years back, someone actually asked Jensen, do you ever think Supernatural will come to an end? Do you think it will ever end? Do you think it will ever finish? And his words were, the show might end, which it now has. The show might end, but what we've created here, what the this fandom, this family, what the show and what the creators have made, and what the fans have made, that will never end. And I think there's so many different people within the fandom that have made so many achievements in the name of the fandom, in the name of the family. And I think that is also another beautiful thing to see. There have been books have been published, and people have achieved all sorts of things with the support of people from within the family, and they've kind of credited the family for it, for giving them the strength and the support they need. And I think that, again, I'm not personally aware of any other show that has actually managed to create something as beautiful as that, or as strong as that, or as just as positive as that. I'm sure there are other shows, but personally, I haven't really been part of many other fandoms that have actually spread the word as positively. So yeah, definitely the sense of family is strong within the fandom and within the show, and it's been one of the driving forces of it for so long, for all this time. So it's definitely something valuable. The music. Supernatural has popularized some music, namely the cult. Can you call it a cult classic? I think maybe you can call it a cult classic. Supernatural is its own cult. It's a very positive cult. And you have to specify positive, because cult in general has a very negative connotation to it. So you have to specify that I don't actually know how many people in the fandom would call it a cult, but that is just my own kind of slip up with words. But Supernatural has popularized, namely one song. Not to say that this song wasn't popular when it was first released. It was, but I think Supernatural being from like a different-ish generation, it definitely kind of brought back that one song and then put it through Supernatural so much that fans immediately recognized it. And now it's, if you ever want to spot a Supernatural fan in a crowd, just start playing Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas, and they will jump up. They will jump up with their own tools and stuff, and they will jump up and immediately recognize it. And that's how you spot a Supernatural fan in a crowd. Just play Carry On Wayward Son, and they'll either start singing along or they'll jump up and shout Team Free Will. But Yeah, Carry On Wayward Son. It's an amazing song. Even without the supernatural connection, it is a really great song. It's got great lyrics. It's really really catchy. It's got like great solos and instrumentals and everything. It's a great song. But yeah, Carry On Wayward Son. It's also been a great way to describe what the show is. Sam and Dean are the wayward sons, and they keep carrying on. They keep carrying on, and in the end, in the finale, I think the way they brought it back in the finale was great. It was fairly well done. But also the fact that they're actually two other girls on YouTube who actually made a cover. Like it was actually years before like the finale even happened. Like it was like a couple of years back. They actually made like their own cover of Carry On Wayward Son 2, and then that cover was the song that we see like the other variation of the song that we actually hear being used in the finale. So that is really cool. That was really really cool. I personally enjoyed the cover too. It's a really really well done cover. And we've also had another cover done within the show itself, within the actual musical episode we had. There was the other one with the nice kind of choir style singing and the actual piano notes and everything. That was like a much more peaceful, serene kind of version of the song. Like that's a version of the song you can fall asleep to. You can't really, Carry On Wayward Son, like the actual original song. I use that as my alarm ringtone. That is that's the song that wakes me up in the morning. But I can't really listen to that as I fall asleep because it's just way too loud and it's really, upbeat and everything. But if you listen to the piano cover done by the girls in the musical episode, you can fall asleep to that stuff. That is really nice and slow, and it's smooth, and it goes at a steady pace, and it's got a steady rhythm to it, and it's really beautiful to listen to. That is the version you can actually you could wake up to that too. You could wake up on a nice, peaceful, serene, musical note, but you could also fall asleep to it. And I say that, and I speak from experience. With that. But yeah, Carry On Wayward Son is a staple in supernatural history, also a staple, and a lot of people will recognize it from a lot of people from the supernatural fandom will recognize it, but even people outside of it who actually listened to Kansas before that will also respect it and appreciate it for what it is. So that is really really cool. But yeah, Carry On Wayward Son, and Nothing Else Matters by Metallica, that was used I think in season 13. I think at the beginning of season 13 they used that one to open up the season. And Metallica is one of Dean's favorite bands. I think that like early on in season 1 there was because of his fear of flights, Dean can be spotted humming along to Metallica, and it's acknowledged by Sam that he's actually humming along to Metallica because it helps calm him down. So Metallica hasn't been used as much, but it's also another song that I've noticed was used in the show, so that's really cool too. But yeah, Carry On Wayward Son it's been modernized, I'd say. It's been modernized by Supernatural. It was already a hit when it first came out. It was already a hit amongst the target audience and amongst the original kind of listeners. But then I'd say it was brought back into the modern world, and it was modernized for this new age of music fans and TV fans by Supernatural. So I think that alone is a great thing. That alone, I think when TV shows and movies today bring back classics and introduce people to older versions of music and older songs, I think that's also great. That is really good. I think because I think there are a lot of people out there who still kind of gatekeep and value being the original listeners and being original fans to all these different things, and then kind of gatekeep some of them gatekeep against those who discover it through other means or discover it through means other than the original release, which isn't cool. Which is like however you discover something, it's the point is you discovered it. The point is whether you discovered it back when you can't discover something that came out when before you were born. You can't discover something that was released before you were born in the same way as everyone else. But however you discover it, the point is you discovered it. The fact is you discovered it, you enjoyed it, you looked into it a bit more, that kind of thing. I think that should be cherished and treasured more than the people who kind of glorify having discovered it before anyone else will discover it upon release date, or back in the good old days or whatever, or anything like that. But Carry On Wayward Son is definitely it's a golden piece in the Supernatural fandom, and it's a golden piece in musical history. So to see it being used like that, and the way that they used it in the finale was It was cool. It was good to it was good to see. It was good to see. But again, it's like, being like knowing how Supernatural has used it in the past, like using it for like their montages of the road so far. You would expect for them to use it the same way in the finale, like using it like from start to finish. Like you'd expect them to use it that way too. But in the finale, they used it to actually montage Sam living his apple pie life with his family and everything. So it was good, but I think they did still have a montage. They did still have a montage showing everything they had been through whilst going through Chuck's curse, and they used that to another song that I've never heard of, to another song which was also great. It was also a great song, but they used that to another song. They made another montage for that, and then for the finale, they had their own thing that was like set to more Sam and Dean centric stuff. So yeah, but Carry On Wayward Son, it is a awesome song. It is an awesome song. And Supernatural has had really meta stuff too. It has had super duper meta content. I don't know if any show out there or any movie out there has gone as meta as Supernatural has. And the first thing I'm going to mention, if you have watched all of Supernatural and you're aware of its meta content, you know exactly what I'm going to mention. The French Mistake. The French Mistake. No, it's not Sam and Dean accidentally booking plane tickets to France and, living in an apple pie life there or going to the beach or whatever. No, it's not that. I mean, truth be told, I don't know why it's called The French Mistake. I think the French Mistake is a very, very peculiar name for it. I don't know why it's called The French Mistake, but that episode, when I came across that episode, and it was in my first watch of Supernatural, when I came across that episode, I was beyond gobsmacked. I was like, wow, they really went this far. They didn't even have to go this far. They they could have just, because Chuck was already Chuck Shirley and Carver Edlund, and like they already had the meta aspect of having Supernatural be like a series of books in their universe, in Sam and Dean's universe, and Sam and Dean, being existing characters in those stories and in those books and everything. So Chuck was literally writing their stories out, not just actually throwing enemies and monsters at them, but literally typing up stories and selling them and making money from them and stuff, So he literally created like a fandom within their world. There was a Supernatural convention. There was an actual convention for the fans, for the fandom of Supernatural in their world. And stuff, and people dressed up as Sam and Dean, and had moments, and that's how we had the whole Supernatural musical episode too. There was a musical based off of the book, so like they could have just stopped there. But no, they went even further and had Balthazar transporting Sam and Dean into a world where Supernatural was a TV show being filmed, starring Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles, and of course the one and only Misha Collins. They had an episode dedicated to that. They had an episode dedicated to showing off Supernatural as an actual show filmed with those actors, where the only actors we got were Misha and Genevieve Padalecki too, Jared's wife, Genevieve, who played the second incarnation of Ruby. Those are the only actual actors we had, and Sam and Dean had to pretend to be Jared and Jensen. Like for the entire episode, they had to pretend to be Jared and Jensen. But then there was that one scene where they were actually trying to shoot Supernatural, but they had to pretend like. But the way that cycle went was Jared and Jensen had to pretend to be Sam and Dean, pretending to be Jared and Jensen, pretending to be Sam and Dean. It was like a whole cycle, pretending to be the actors, playing the characters, playing the actors, playing the characters. So it was like that whole thing, and it's one of the funniest scenes of Supernatural. So it's one of the funniest scenes of Jared and Jensen pretending that they can't act, and they're getting their scenes wrong over and over again, and it's the whole thing. And I think they're maintaining the Supernatural kind of sense of dread and emergency with there being another being. I think it was like a demon or something. I think it might have been a demon or like an angel or something that was actually still hunting them down and trying to find something from them. And I think the ending of that, I think they brought in Eric Kripke. Was it Eric Kripke? Or was it someone else? I think it might have been like, not the actual Eric Kripke, not the actual one, but they actually hired someone to play him, and he drove up to the set of Supernatural. He drove up to Vancouver, and he actually, walked onto set, and then the angel, the person that was there hunting Sam and Dean, killed Eric Kripke. Eric Kripke was killed off in an episode of his own show. So that I didn't actually know who that was back there. I think back then I didn't really focus too much on who it was. I just thought he was like a random crewmate. I just thought he was a random crewmate, and Angel just killed off a random person and stuff. But it wasn't until fairly recently. It wasn't until fairly recently that I actually found out that it was actually Eric Kripke that walked onto that set, and he was killed by a being of his own design. So that is easily the most meta episode of Supernatural ever to be birthed, and I think it's one that will be cherished for years to come. But yeah, and I think after having watched that episode, I think I definitely shared like a common sentiment with other fans of the episode in the sense that, it would have been great if we had like a second one, except a second one where Jared and Jensen were instead transported into the world of Supernatural. Jared and Jensen were transported into the world of that, so they had to actually, not like so for once they had to actually pretend that they knew what they were doing. They actually had to fight for their lives for real this time, with real punches and real knives and real weapons and everything. So that would have been cool. But yeah, and I think the irony of that episode was that it was cool to see Jared and Jensen actively kind of like ironically mocking themselves, like like Dean discovering that his real life counterpart was in Days of Our Lives, like in like a cheesy sitcom kind of thing and stuff, and and like them just literally discovering that there was like a world where their lives were a TV show played by these two guys, and just the fact that they were poking fun of it almost the entire time. It's just one of the greatest things to ever come out of Supernatural. And again, I don't think any other movie or TV show has ever gone that far to poke fun at themselves whilst also actually having genuine fun making fun of themselves. So in that sense, it was a great episode. And then we've had like changing channels as well. Changing channels was like another somewhat meta-ish episode. Like it was like still like a TV show setting inside of the actual world. Like it was Gabriel the trickster playing tricks on them and putting them in different settings, putting them in different forms of television media. That was great. But I think for me, French Mistake is arguably more enjoyable than Changing Channels. Because Changing Channels is still set within the world and it still has its moments, but French Mistake is the one where it all goes out the window. And French Mistake, if you really want to mess with someone who has never seen Supernatural before, if there's anyone in your life that you want to introduce Supernatural to, but at the same time you really want to mess with them, make French Mistake the first episode they see. Make sure they know nothing about the show. And then show them French Mistake. It will blow their minds. And I mean, they'll be confused for a lot of it, likely. But I think showing them that kind of an episode first will be like an interesting perspective to show. So yeah, it's the meta aspects of this show is really great. It's really great. And also in terms of meta, I almost want to mention this in terms of meta. Scooby Natural, one of the best episodes the show has had. That crossover is, and again, I think that crossover is something that you might not have ever thought would happen. Like it is something that you might think would only ever be entirely fan driven. But with Sam and Dean themselves being huge fans of Scooby Doo and having grown up on it, the writers deciding like, you know what? Yeah, let's go Scooby Natural. Let's go with Scooby Natural. Let's do that before we ever even consider like ending the show. Scooby Natural was also such a great, like almost entirely animated. It was such a great episode to watch, and it was a really fun thing. And I think also the fact that they considered that, adding in Supernatural to Scooby-Doo, like Supernatural is considerably more adult and more mature than Scooby-Doo is. Scooby-Doo is like a fun little kids show, but Supernatural deals with like a lot more stuff, especially visually, like, with the gore and stuff. Like, so them actually finding a dead body that was dismembered and ghosts existing and it being a real ghost and everything, like introducing that whole kind of actual realistic horror to Scooby-Doo was, I think, a really fun twist to watch unfold, and to actually see the characters contemplating the idea of a real evil existing and all that kind of stuff. So I think the Scooby-Doo episode is also a really fun episode to watch and to enjoy. And I think that is also another one of my favorite crossovers. And I think something also worth mentioning is the journeys of the actors, Jared, Jensen, and Misha, namely. Like, their journeys on the show has been amazing. Because I think when they first joined the shows, they were definitely they were definitely very early on in their careers, and they didn't really have, to my knowledge, they didn't really have too many shows under their belt, but they had enough, and Supernatural was definitely like something for them to start off with and actually see how it went, and to see how far it's come. I think it's definitely one of those stories like, like, they probably didn't really think it would be as big as it was today or go for as long as it did. And especially since, like season 5 was meant to be the final one. Like Eric Kripke stepped off after season 5, but he even said that his plan was originally to end off at season 5, but then because of how popular it was and how high the ratings were, he decided he would step off as the main kind of guy, but he would still kind of help produce more seasons and help write more stuff. So it got 10 more after that. And it got 10 more after that. So yeah, but yeah, Jared and Jensen and Misha, I think they've definitely used this show for a lot more than just being Sam and Dean and Castiel. Like, they definitely used it for a lot more than just being the characters, and I think it also more than just being the, like, they've definitely utilized being at the conventions in so many different positive ways, like, connecting with the fans and listening to their stories and hearing what they have to say, but also sharing their own personal lives with us. Like, Jared met his wife through the show, like Dean was able to, Jensen was able to bring his wife onto the show. Misha, blew up with this show. Like, Castiel, especially Cass, wasn't meant to be a huge part of the show. He was only meant to be in like a few episodes, but then because of how well received his introduction and Castiel's character was, they kept him on for more and more and more, and Castiel himself has become a staple of the show. So to see how far these boys have come, both individually and together, is also like an amazing journey to watch. Like, like if you go back and watch a season 1, like, they look like such babies. They're like, Sam and Dean and like Jared and Jensen and Kat and Misha, they all three of them look like such babies when you go back and look at their introductions, and now they're fully grown men with families and just with such fulfilling lives and stuff, and like such like a huge achievements under their belt. So to see how much they've grown is just incredible. It's really, really incredible. So like Jensen has his own brewing company now. He started a brewing company in the name of Supernatural, the family business brewing company. That's amazing. Jared has his own charitable organization, Always Keep Fighting, helping to support people going through like depression and mental illness and stuff. And Misha is one of the most charitable dudes out there. He's got Gishes. I think I'm pronouncing that right? Gishes or Gishwiz, I think. Yeah, Gishwiz. But they've all got their own stuff going on. They've all got amazing things going on. Stuff that they've fought forward. So to see how far they've come, and how much they love and support their fans, and how much they kind of endured for their fans, and how much they've put out for their fans, is amazing to see. So for that, I think as a fandom, we can all happily salute them. So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, so I'm back. Video got cut a little bit short. I mean, I was recording for like 2.5 hours, so I got in most of what I wanted. But this is now the ending to the video. But yeah, no, like I said, Jared, Jensen, and Misha, I think they've definitely changed with the show too. And I think you can find various interviews, be it from actual journalists, or if they're talking about stories at like a convention, you can see various stories they talk about in terms of like how their kind of status as actors and celebrities have changed and evolved through Supernatural, and how their lives have changed and stuff. So to see the fact that to see them talk about how much they've been influenced by the fandom just as much as they have influenced it, it's definitely a heartwarming thing to see, to show that that they've internalized a lot of the love and the support that they've received, not just as characters, like not just as actors playing these characters, but also as people. They've all of them have individually gone through their own struggles, both before, during, and after Supernatural. But I think they have their own methods of coping with those struggles, and they have their friends and their families and their personal lives, and they have the fandom as well. Like everyone joining together to send them great wishes and good positive vibes. But yeah, I think just seeing how far they've come is just it's an amazing journey to see. It's an amazing journey to see like how far how much time they've spent working on this show, making it the best that they can do with the power that they have. It's really amazing to see, and I honestly can't wait to see what they go on to from here. I think whether or not they return to Supernatural in any fashion is up to them, and it's all we can do is wait and see what they actually decide to do. But I mean, Jared is going on to star in like a Walker Texas Ranger reboot. And the only thing I know about that is that, for one thing, the character is a cowboy, and it was also originally and formerly played by Chuck Norris. So I don't know what to expect from that show. Um, but I mean, Jared can easily pull off the cowboy hat look. He can easily. I think he's worn like a cowboy hat like a couple of times in this show. So nowhere near as seriously as Walker Texas Ranger, but I'm pretty sure he can pull off that look. And I'm curious to see how he will actually handle a role outside of Sam Winchester. I think he did. I think it was partway through, his time during Supernatural. He actually went back for there was the Gilmore Girls reunion. The Gilmore Girls reunion they had like a few years back. He actually went back for that, so he actually addressed that. He addressed that at a convention too. How he actually went back to play another character he hadn't played in a long time. And I think in Gilmore Girls his character's name is Dean. In Gilmore Girls his character's name is Dean, which is odd. And I mean Gilmore Girls came out I think before Supernatural, so he actually played he played Dean first. Jared played Dean first, but we can't deny Jensen does pull off the whole Dean identity and character just a little bit better, but maybe there's a little bit of bias since I've never actually seen Gilmore Girls and I've only ever seen Supernatural, so yeah, but either way, I do look forward to seeing. I don't know if I'll react to it. I don't know. I genuinely don't know if I'll actually go and react to it. But I think at most, at the very least, I will check an episode or two out and see what the show's like and see how Jared fits into a new role and a new setting with new people. So that will be fun. And Jensen is going on to another TV show that I am currently reacting to. He's going to be moving on to season 3 of The Boys. He's joining that, and The Boys is also an Eric Kripke created kind of TV show. That one has a comic book background. It has a graphic novel kind of background to it. So, and there is a video I saw as well. It's also another video from Supernatural Conventions where they were asked about where Jared and Jensen were. I think it was Jared and Jensen. Jensen was definitely there, but he was asked about how he feels about Supernatural and its tone and grittiness and its kind of content and stuff compared to other shows. And Jensen literally told the audience that he feels like there is actually another show out there that he feels is like Supernatural, but without the content and maturity barriers that the CW has, and that show is The Boys. He felt like like The Boys is what Supernatural could be in terms of violence and gore and story and stuff, but just without the restrictions that the CW puts on its own TV shows, knowing who their target audience is and stuff. So then to see him go from that to actually being on The Boys too, and I think his connection to Eric Kripke definitely helped, and he's going to be playing Soldier Boy. He's playing Soldier Boy, so that is going to be very, very fun to see. I think that they haven't actually started filming The Boys yet. They haven't actually started filming yet, but he is kind of getting his costume fitted and prepped and everything, so that's very cool. And he also mentioned that his boots, the boots he wears as Dean, is the one part of Dean's costume on Supernatural that he's actually taking with him to The Boys. So I'm just this just means you're gonna get the day that he debuts on The Boys, the day that the Boys season 3 premieres, and then his character debuts, you're just gonna get Twitter trending with pictures of Jensen's feet. That's it. After he reveals that, it's just gonna be like a whole day where Jensen's feet or Jensen's boots is like a trending topic on Twitter or something. It's gonna go trending. Mark my words, Jensen's feet will trend on Twitter. That is how the fandom works. That's how the internet's gonna work the day that he debuts. But honestly, I can't wait to see what he's like. Seeing him as an actual superhero, and especially in something as tonally different as The Boys, because The Boys isn't like your regular superhero media. It's not like Marvel or DC where you actually get that kind of classic cheery superhero feel. Like The Boys, if you've watched The Boys, then I've reacted to it, to season 1 and season 2. They were both great. Both seasons were great. And yeah, it's very, very tonally different. So to see him playing, and I think it's also all the more ironic when you realize that the Soldier Boy, the character he's playing, is basically like a much more mature version of Captain America, and he was on the shortlist. Jensen was on the shortlist to play Captain America, and because of scheduling conflicts with Supernatural, he opted out. He rejected the call. So yeah, so I mean, it was fortuitous. He got to keep on playing Dean Winchester, and now he got to play a different version of Captain America. So yeah, but point still stands. I am very, very much excited to see how they go on. Misha, I'm not really sure if he has anything planned. I've not heard anything about him moving to other universes or moving to other TV shows. I think if Misha's going to take a break from acting and be with his family a bit more, because that is also a very, very possible kind of choice, then all the more power to him. He has spent so many years on this show playing this character, doing so much for the community and for the fandom. So if he feels like he wants to take a break, all the more power to him. I look forward to whatever he does in the future, if and when he does it. But yeah, saying goodbye to these three is not easy. It's not easy saying goodbye to Jan. I mean, they're not really going anywhere. They're not like it's not like it's not like they're leaving the face of the earth. They're not actually dead or anything. That okay? I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that. But you know, it's still hard to kind of like say goodbye to these characters, to these faces, like seeing them as seeing them as Sam and Dean and Castiel, and or rather like not seeing them as those characters anymore is going to be hard, or at least for a while. But you know, I think now, yeah, I think what makes it even harder is that the finale itself didn't really feel as well established as it could have. So it feels like we definitely could we definitely could see more of Sam and Dean, and more of them, more of their lives, more of them spending time with the people that are hopefully still alive on Earth and stuff like that. So seeing the end to this story, I think the series finale definitely felt more like an end to the story of Sam and Dean as opposed to the story of Supernatural. Supernatural. By the end of it, we know that there are so many other people out there, so many other people with their own stories to tell. So I think that begs the question: could a spin-off happen? I think even in the middle of its run, there were definitely attempts at spin-offs. There was one spin-off I think called Bloodlines, and I'm not thinking, was it Bloodlines? I think it might have been. I think it might have been Bloodlines. I think it was going to be about like the feud, like a feud between families, like consisting of like werewolves and vampires. It was going to be somewhat like Being Human. I feel somewhat like Being Human, but like a backdoor pilot was aired on the show and it didn't really do too well. So they scratched that idea, and then of course the spin-off that people actually wanted, the spin-off that I think the majority of the fandom, or at least like enough people in the fandom actually wanted, Wayward Sisters. That one had a backdoor pilot aired, and I think personally, I really really enjoyed that episode. Personally, I enjoyed it, and I think you know I think that episode alone showed that these characters are interesting enough for us to actually want to spin off from. So even if we didn't really get much of like a characterized vibe from this episode, clearly it shows that with a spin off we could actually get more out of them. So I feel like that one was easily much more higher rated than the Bloodlines one, but then the network still decided not to go forward with it, or they kind of shelved it or something for another day. So yeah, but now even with it ended, I feel like there are still possible ideas for a spin-off. I think especially with Dean Jr., Sam's son, Dean Jr. I think him being alive and well in the present day, and also him being a hunter. If he wasn't a hunter, then I feel like this would be like a less of a possibility. But because he's a hunter and he has knowledge of that world, I feel like they could make a spin-off of him being a hunter and maybe joining forces with like Charlie and Garth and Bobby and Jodie, and like just being with them hunting, being his own person, maybe recruiting someone else along the way and like starting like a team or something. I don't know, but I feel like him being a hunter, him being in that world is definitely a possibility. So I don't know. I feel like there are options, and we could still go forward with the Wayward Sisters one. We could definitely still go forward with the Wayward Sisters spin-off if the network puts enough faith into it. I mean, at this point, I don't know if it's even kind of worth fighting for, because the network seems to have forgotten about it completely. So I don't know how likely it is that our voices might be heard on that front. But again, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. It's a possibility, or maybe if Jensen and Jared and Misha believe in it enough, then they might want to produce a spin-off of their own. So maybe they might reboot Supernatural in a way that Sam and Dean aren't involved because they're dead now, but they might still kind of reboot like a new generation of hunters, like a next generation. So the Wayward Sisters and Dean Jr. and like God knows who else, like a new generation. So that would be fun to watch. I feel like I mean on paper it sounds like a cool enough idea, but I guess if you to take the time to establish it, then you can actually weed out some flaws and do that kind of thing. But I'm already thinking about possible spin-offs, and the show has. I mean, again, it's been a few weeks. It's been a few weeks, so the show has ended still, and people are still in kind of some sense of grievance about the whole thing. But again, it's I can't help it. I can't help it. I think had the show ended on an actual satisfying finale, then I think part of me would still be wondering. Part of me would still be wondering, like, could a spin off still be a possibility? But more of me would be thinking, you know what, I'm happy with what we got. I'm glad we got to see some closure and an end to Sam and Dean's story. I mean, in an alternate universe, that would be a thing. In an alternate universe, that would be what I would be saying in this video. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But regardless, eh, I am eternally grateful. I am eternally grateful for what Supernatural has given me and how it has impacted my life. I found the SPN fandom. I've been more than proud to call myself a member of it. And I've, watched this show with such passion and with, so much joy and oftentimes pain too. And I will watch it all the more times to come. I will watch it all the more times to come. But for what it's worth, it's been a great, great show. And yeah, it's. I don't think I can hold there aren't very many shows that I can actually hold in my heart the way that I do Supernatural, and that is a testament, I feel, to all the people who worked on it, and also to the fandom. Like the fandom, definitely kind of pushed it up and out of the flames and into the light, and if that analogy makes sense. But no, it's definitely it's definitely a classic. I feel it's definitely a classic, and I say that not just because it started in the early 2000s, but also because I think it's like it incorporates all those kinds of classic themes and stories and like kind of character moments that we kind of cherish and remember for all the years to come. Like even the oldest episodes and even the newest episodes have something we can actually hold on to, even in the smallest of ways. So yeah, but yeah, it's been a great run. It has been a fantastic run. It's been a fantastic run. And yeah, so I mean, it goes without saying, I will still be doing reactions, to TV shows, not to Supernatural. I think Supernatural, I mean, there is the animated show. There is the animated show, which I don't know. I mean, I've checked out the first episode, actually. I saw the first episode years ago, like, back when I was on season 5, and I think when I was on season 5, season 8 was airing. Yeah, was it? I think maybe. Yeah, I think season maybe yeah. See, I think season 8 or season 9 was airing when I was back on season 5. So I was on season 5 when season like 8 or 9 was like actually live and present. And then that was when I think I was like a quarter of the way through season 5 when I discovered there was an animated show. And I checked one episode out. That I mean, I'd heard like mixed reviews. Like it wasn't great, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of it just existed. It just existed, and I think Jared's voice is present throughout the whole thing. He voices Sam for the whole thing, but it's only for like the last half of the season. It's like one season, I think, one or two seasons. I think it's actually just one season. Um, but for like the last half of the season is the only point where Jensen actually comes in to voice Dean. So someone else is voicing him for the first half. And I checked out the first episode, and yeah, it's like they've just they've taken already aired like live action episodes and just animated them for whatever reason. Like it's nothing completely new. I think the first episode, like to my knowledge, I think the first episode is actually not even the first episode of Supernatural. It's not the Woman in White one. I think the first episode is the Shapeshifter episode. Yeah, I think which is the it's a good few episodes into season 1. The Shapeshifter episode comes in, but the Shapeshifter episode is the first episode of the actual animated season. So I haven't checked all of it out. I haven't seen all of it. It's just that one episode, and then I was like, okay, it's cool, but I need to get back to the actual live action and catch up to where it's at now. So yeah, but yeah, so I mean, the Supernatural animated show. I don't know how I feel about that, and if I might or if I may or may not check that out and check that out in the future. If you guys have any thoughts and opinion or feelings on it, then go ahead, let me know what you think of that. But I will be reacting to something in the place of Supernatural. I have something already having taken over Supernatural in my schedule, and I mentioned this on Twitter a while back that I think it was like once the final 7 episodes started airing, I said, I sent a tweet out saying, okay, so I've already picked out a show to react to after Supernatural. So that show is going to be Good Omens, the Amazon Prime Video show. Good Omens is a highly acclaimed show. From what I've seen, is a highly acclaimed show, and it's also like thematically and story wise and character wise, it's very very similar to Supernatural, and that's because Eric Kripke is a huge fan of Neil Gaiman, the guy who actually co-wrote the Good Omens books. Good Omens is based on a series of books that he co-wrote with Terry Pratchett. So Good Omens actually has a lot of the original ideas that Eric Kripke was inspired by, and Eric Kripke actually used to help create Supernatural. So it's should be a very very kind of should be a show that grows on me fairly quickly. But yeah, Good Omens is going to be the one that I react to in the place of Supernatural from now on. A first season has already been fully released. I think a second season is on the way. I believe a second season is on the way. But yeah, that should be fun. That should be very very fun. So hope you guys will enjoy those reactions just as much, and I look forward to seeing you in that show too. I look forward to seeing you in that show too. But yeah, that is it. That is pretty much all my thoughts I can get out right now on Supernatural, on both the finale and the TV show. Again, this show has changed my life. This show has it's one of the few shows to do so, but it has changed my life, and I will forever cherish it, and it will have a special place in my heart, as I presume that the rest of the fandom feels as well. But yeah, it's been great. I have loved both watching this show in my own time and also reacting to it. I think like reacting to it has actually helped me has elevated my passion for the show, because then I can actually share these with you guys, share these emotions and these tears and all the joy and the theories and everything with you guys. So it's been fun making reactions to them, but watching it in my own time, discovering it in my own time, being a part of this fandom has been one of the greatest joys, and I can't wait to see what happens next. If anything does happen next, I can't wait to see what it is. If not, then Supernatural, I think it will forever hold it will forever hold its place in pop culture in its own way. And I think I feel like it will stand the test of time. I feel like it will stand the test of time because it tells some really really great stories. It shows some really really great character arcs, and it just has some really really amazing moments, whether they're happy or sad. It just has some really great moments. So yeah, Supernatural, Team Free Will for the win. Team Free Will forever. SPN family forever. Like we will outlast the world. We will outlast the rest of the world. For the live long day. So. Yeah, I'm bad at outros. If you hadn't noticed, yeah, I'm very bad at outros. I'm very bad at saying goodbye to things. So yeah, but yeah, that is pretty much it. So again, comments are open. Any thoughts you guys have on the finale and or the show as a whole? Any stories you want to share? Any memories you want to share? Go ahead, have at it. But yeah, it's been great. It has been truly great. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, then salt and burn that like button. Comment on what you thought of the video and what your thoughts are on the show and the finale and any other kind of hopes or predictions you have for what the future of Supernatural might hold. And yeah, that is it. So keep calm, carry on.